Unit 6, Similarity and Right Triangles. Day 1, we're going to talk about proportions and similar polygons today. The first problem. Fernando conducted a survey of 50 students driving to school and found that 28 owned cars. If 755 students drive to school, predict the number of students who own cars. These are proportion problems. So let's set up a proportion to represent the scenario we're talking about right now. Of a survey of 50 students, 28 of them own cars. So we know that 28 out of 50 own cars. Then we also know that there's a total of 755 students who drive to school. So when we look at our fraction on the left, the students who drive to school, or the total number of students who drive to school, will get on the bottom. So the 755 will need to go at the bottom. Then it wants us to predict the number who own cars. So since we don't know that number, we're going to call it x. And since it's a proportional problem, we can use cross multiplication to solve for it. And when we cross multiply, we're going to take 50 times x, which would give us 50x. Set it equal to the product of 28 times 755. So it'd be 50x is equal to, grab my handy dandy calculator. I need to take off my pen. Alright, so that's 755 times 28. 21,140. 21,140. Now to get x by itself, we divide both sides by 50, which would mean that x is equal to whatever that quotient is. So now all I need to do is divide by 50 now. 422.8. And it is perfectly fine to have a decimal. Students will own their own car. Do number 2, which would be very similar to that one. Now let's look at number 3. It said Nimitz Soccer won 8 games and lost 2 in a season. If they play 30 games, how many games can they expect to win? So the ratio of won to loss is 8 to 2. We need to know, out of 30 games, how many can they expect to win? So the proportion we could set up is we know that in 10 games, they won 8 out of 10. So now our job is to figure out x out of 30. Alright, so again, we can cross multiply. 10 times x is 10x. 8 times 30 is 240. Divide both sides by 10. Therefore, x is equal to 24. So out of 30 games, we could expect them to win 24. The ratio of the measures of angles of a triangle is 3 to 4 to 5. It wants us to find the measures of the angles. Well, we know the measures of all angles of a triangle will add up to equal 180. So we know that 3 plus 4 plus 5 would equal 180. Since we don't know the measures, we're going to say 3x, 4x, and 5x. X representing the measure, and then if we find x, we can find each angle. So that means 3x plus 4x is 7x, plus 5x is 12x, and that's equal to 180. Then divide both sides by 12, and then x would equal 15. So now that I know x is 15, 3 times 15 is one of the angles, which is 45 degrees. 4 times 15 is the other angle, which is 60 degrees. And then 5 times 15 is 75 degrees, which is the remaining angle. Number 5, in a triangle, the ratio of the measures of the sides is 2 to 2 to 3, and the perimeter is 392 inches. It wants you to find the length of the longest side of the triangle, only the longest side. But this problem is similar to the first. I will start it off, but I'm sure you can finish it. So you would do 2x plus 2x plus 3x is equal to the perimeter, which is 392. Then once you find x, you need to sub it back into the last one only, 3 times it for the longest side. Now take a picture when you're finished and submit. Now we're going to talk about similar polygons. Similar polygons means that it has the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. So in this diagram, it tells us that triangle QRS is similar to triangle MNO. Notice this little, we call it a tilde mark. It's not above or equal. So it doesn't mean congruent. It means simply just similar. There's a difference between congruent and similar. Congruent means same size and same shape. Similar just means same shape, but not necessarily the same size. So again, notice the difference of this symbol. But similar, it is similar to how congruent triangles were named, where the ordering does matter. In other words, since angle Q is first on that triangle, it corresponds to angle M on that triangle. So angle Q and angle M. then angle R corresponds to angle M. Or N. And lastly, S corresponds to O. Now it wants us to list the proportional sides. So that means QR is proportional to MN. RS is proportional to NO. And QS is proportional to MO. And notice I put an equal in between. For similar polygons, those ratios of proportionality need to be the same in order for the polygons to be similar. The ratios have to be the same in order for the polygon to be similar. And again, I already mentioned that angle Q is congruent to angle M. Angle R is congruent to angle N. And angle S is congruent to angle O. So in similar figures, sides are going to be proportional and angles are going to be congruent. Number 6, are the triangles similar? If so, write the similarity statement and the scale factor. Just FYI, scale factor could be used interchangeably with this phrase, similarity ratio. So we're giving it to you both ways just in case you see it in the future. Similarity ratio and scale factor mean the same. So first I got to prove that they are the same by, well, let's look. I know that angle N is congruent with angle R. Angle Q is congruent with angle S. So that means angle P is congruent with angle T, which helps. But just because the angles are congruent doesn't mean it's similar. Now I got to look at all the set up all the proportional ratios for each side. So in Q to RS, let's try that first. So that's 12.5 to 10. And I'm sure it can reduce. Now let's look at QP. Oops, QP to ST, which would be 11.5 to 9.2. And see what that will reduce to. I'm going to need my calculator, of course. And lastly, we're going to try PN to TR, which would be 15 to 12. So right off the bat, I know 15 to 12 simplifies to 5/4. I don't believe those other ratios would do the same. Well, I do know that 12.5 divided by 10 is going to give me 1.25. Now let's take a look at 11.5 and 9.2. 1.25. And 5 divided by 4 is also 1.25. I forgot. You're right. So, since they all reduce to 1.25, then all sides are proportional. So yes, the polygon is similar. So we need to write first the similarity statement, which would be triangle NQP is similar to triangle RST. And again, order does matter. So if you notice for the NQP, I started where the angle was singular, traveled to the double, and then the one that had nothing. So I did the same thing for RST, and that's how I knew which angles correspond to which ones. And then the scale factor or similarity ratio is 5/4 or 1.25. So now you should be able to do number 7. In the diagram below, it tells us that polygon ACDF is similar to polygon VWYZ. Kind of looks like it's a trapezoid. First, it would like for us to solve for x. So x is FB or DF, so that means it's similar to YZ or ZY, which means that we could have DF to YZ, which is equal to, do we have another? We have CD and YW, which are also proportional because they're in the same order, CWYD, and we have both of them labeled. Okay, so this is going to help us find x. So DF is x, YZ is 10, CD is 9, and YW is 6. So again, to solve this, we can cross multiply. So x times 6 is 6x. 9 times 10 is 90. Divide both sides by 6. So x is going to equal 15. Okay. Now it would like for us to solve for y. Again, I think I will use CDYW because I definitely know both of those numbers. And then I need, since y is in VZ, VZ is the same as AF. According to its location. So again, CD is 9, YW is 6, AF is 12, and VZ is 3y minus 1. Now again, we're going to cross multiply. Now when I cross multiply this 9 with 3y minus 1, I need to multiply 9 with 3y and get 27y. But I also need to multiply 9 with negative 1 and get a negative 9. And then now it's 6 times 12, which is 72. Then I would add 9 to both sides, give me 27y is equal to 81. Divide both sides by 27. And I estimate that it'll be 3. And 3 is correct, just by doing a little bit of mental math here. So y is equal to 3. Now that you know what y is, we can find the length of BZ by substituting it back in. So that's 3 times 3 minus 1, 9 minus 1, which is 8. And this concludes your notes for today.